and welcome to Gerald's Corner. Here today, we're going to talk a little bit about one of my favorite choral pieces, Spem and Alium by the English composer Thomas Tallis. Uh, Primarily, what I want to do today is have just a brief listening session. We're going to listen to it. We'll talk about a few details that are found within the music, some things for you to think about. But really, the goal is just to sit back and enjoy this beautiful, beautiful piece of choral music. So the question now becomes, what's the story behind the work? We believe in 1560s, 1570, when Tallis wrote this work, it was in response to a 40-voice motet or mass that was composed by Striggio several years prior. Sturridge was on some kind of a musical tour and he ended up in London because he wanted to meet the musical virtuosi of the time, which he did. And of course, scholars are saying, they're asking the question if he indeed did meet up with William Byrd and Thomas Tallis. Well, how could he have not, since Tallis was the preeminent composer of England at this time? And at the behest of the Duke, I believe, of Norfolk, he asked the question, is there someone in England who could write a piece as grand and as beautiful as that piece that the Italian guy brought? And Tallis apparently rose to the challenge. So some would argue that, in fact, Spem and Alium is in direct response to the piece that Striggio had composed. So that's the story. How much of the story is fact versus folklore, who knows? But it's a good story, and it's one that I think helps to enhance the mystery behind that beautiful piece of music. And he wrote this beautiful motet for 40 voices. And I think it sits high above any of the choral music that existed as its contemporary. I think it is so beautiful. It's sublime music. Another story that I like to share with folks is a personal story. My first time ever hearing this work was when I was, I want to say about 17, 16 or 17, maybe even 15, actually, I can't remember exactly. But I was on a bus coming from school in Philadelphia. I went to school in downtown Philadelphia, but I lived in Westchester, so every day I would commute back and forth on a bus, public transportation. And I had my Sony earphones on at the time, and a classical radio station in Philadelphia was playing this piece, and I had just gotten so enraptured by it. I felt like I was just being wrapped up in sound. And a person that was sitting to my left on the bus, and I'll never forget this, after a few minutes tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Are you okay?" And I turned and I looked at them and I said, "Of course I'm okay. Why?" Uh, and they said, "Well, you are just bawling. Tears are just coming down your face." And I touched my cheek and it was completely wet. Apparently, I was mesmerized by this piece. I was in a trance or something, and didn't realize, there was anybody else around me or how my body was responding in a visceral way. Um, and that's the story of how I fell in love with this piece. And ever since then, I seek to listen to fine recordings of this work. Back in 1998, right before I moved to Michigan, I had an ensemble that performed a variety of things. Early music was one of them, but we could never do anything as massive as that. But we had a performance at the Philadelphia Museum of Art on a Wednesday. And my group got there to set up, and I saw a flyer from a concert the night before that was left on this little marble table. And I saw that the Philadelphia Singers and some other group had come together and they performed Spem and Alium. So I missed it by one day. I didn't know anything about it. And I'm devastated by that even to this day, because I have not been able to find a live performance of that work since. So anyway, that's my personal connection with this particular composition. I do hope that you enjoy it. And we're going to take some time. We're going to listen to it. And then at the end, I'll come back and give you a few more specific details. But the things that I want you to listen for as this piece is beginning to play for you is listen to how each individual voice enters. Probably the first 10 lines you can count as you're hearing them, but because of the sheer scope and size of this work, it becomes blurred. You can no longer tell which voice is which. And because recording is set up as if it was performed live, meaning the individual groups of people are in different parts of the space, so they're singing across from one another, and you know, it's an antiphonal dream. So sit back, enjoy, and thank you for coming to visit me here at Gerald's Corner, and I'll see you at the end of this presentation. Thank you.